Hi, Joe Silva here, and I'm excited to bring you another edition of the Ideal Startup Series. This is the series where we discuss all things starting a small business. So if you're on that entrepreneurship journey, or maybe you have an idea of what you want to do, let's make that dream a reality and get you started. So today we're talking about entity formation and getting legal within your state to do business. And there's a lot that goes into that, some ins and outs. Should you file the paperwork yourself? Should you hire somebody to do it? What type of paperwork do I need? Where do I even begin? And so Amy Purdy of URS Agents is with us, and her company does this all day long for thousands of clients across the country. And so we have a good discussion about what's involved, timelines involved, what needs to happen, how you can form your organization and get ready to start your entrepreneurship, your small business, the way you need to do it. So without further ado, we'll get to Amy right now. All right, welcome. I'm Joe Silva. I am owner of the Ideal Payroll Service, and I host the Ideal Small Biz podcast, which we are on now. And we're pleased to be joined by Amy Purdy of URS Agents. Amy, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. This is an
Excellent.
honor.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We're going to dive into all things small business. So with this series, we're doing the Ideal Startup Series, and we're talking about what it takes to start a business, because for us, starting a business is the way to freedom, to wealth, to independence, and it can do a lot for the economy. And lots of good stuff comes out of starting a small business. But before you can do that, you've got to do some certain things and get your ducks in a row in order to do that. And that's where you guys come in. But maybe give
Yeah.
us the 30 to 60-second rundown of what URS Agents is and what you guys do, and then we'll dive into some of the details.
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, like you said, get your ducks in a row. First step, people need to form an entity to protect their personal assets. So with the small startups, what we see mostly is LLCs. So people forming LLCs with the Secretary of State. And we offer document preparation and filing service where we can prepare and file the paperwork to get the LLC set up, or corporation if they're going to go that route. And then we provide nationwide registered agent service as well. So essentially with that, when you're forming an entity, you have to designate a registered agent to receive your legal paperwork. If you get sued by law, it's called service of process. That goes to the registered agent on record. It's their job to receive that on behalf of the entity and forward to the entity. So we do that nationwide. We can prepare and file entities with any state and act as registered agent in any state as well.
All right. So a lot going on there when you start a business, and
Mhm.
most people aren't going to know which way to go. One, left, right, center, whatever. They have no idea which way to go when they start. But really, business formation comes. Okay, I've got an idea. So I'm Joe, business owner, which I am. But we'll pretend in this example I'm Joe, business owner, and I've got an idea. I want to start something. I'm going to start a coffee shop or a cleaning service or a lawn company, whatever it is. I've got some options on how I want to structure that. Really, I can just go off my name and be a sole proprietor, or I can form a corporation.
Mhm.
And what you guys do, if I understand correctly, is when you file with the state, you have to basically file with the Secretary of State, correct? And then
Correct.
that becomes a legalized entity at that point, correct?
Exactly. You are correct. And yes, exactly what you just said. If you want to be a sole proprietor, it's an option, but you're not giving yourself any legal protection. Essentially, your assets are not being protected in any way. It's not a legal entity registered with the state. So if you want to take the next step and protect yourself, that's where you're forming the LLC, the corporation.
Got it. So as a sole
Mhm.
proprietor, if somebody has a disagreement with me and they sue my business, they're suing me personally. But
Correct.
as an LLC, if I form that, then I have some protection there, and they're actually suing the company versus me personally. And so that's the advantage of forming an LLC.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so do you guys help with that, Amy, or what are the challenges that businesses or new business owners are going to face? Is this a simple matter of, hey, I'm going to go to the Secretary of State and fill out some paperwork, or, what does that process look like with your clients?
Yeah, and yes and no to that. There are certainly the people that will take it all upon themselves and try to do the filing by themselves. Some can get it, some don't get it, and definitely need assistance. Many states have online filing options. That's definitely the way to go if the state has an online option. We certainly direct our clients that way if they're going to self-file. And then, for those that are they're clueless, we definitely offer a great service to prepare and file the paperwork correctly in a timely manner. We definitely can help clients. we see a lot of, we call them self-filers, who submit the paperwork and it comes back with lots of errors, and then corrections need to be made and you have to submit another filing to correct it, pay money to correct it. So a lot of times it's worth it just to get it done right the first time and hire a company like ours. Saves some time and effort for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can
Yeah.
be true of many industries. I'm in the
Hmm.
payroll industry is my company. It's the same thing. We'll see a client
Hmm.
that tried to do things on their own and they missed a tax payment. Now they're paying
Yeah.
penalties. So it's probably the
Yeah.
same in your world where I can try to do it on my own, but if I mess that up or if I forget to fill out a box or something, but probably it's very simple to you guys and not so
Hmm.
obvious to, the person that doesn't do it all day long, that can spell big trouble on having to refile and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. It certainly can. Yeah. Be time consuming. And like I said, just cost additional money to make corrections.
Okay.
So
Um,
definitely.
when it comes to the various types of entities, you mentioned earlier the corporation. So do you guys help with like the S corp filing if somebody wants to do that, or just the LLC paperwork, or maybe explain that in some detail?
Yeah, definitely. So that we don't help with the tax designation with the IRS, the S Corp, C Corp, the client would need to get that set up with the IRS on their own. So we are handling the entity formation portion of it alone at the Secretary of State level. We can absolutely assist the client in obtaining their EIN after the entity is formed, but above and beyond that, we don't set up like their tax elections for them.
Got it.
So,
So that's something they
mhm,
want to touch base with their accountant about is what we typically recommend, and make
mhm,
sure, because there's advantages, as you dive deeper and deeper into this, there's an advantage to being an LLC, and then there's certain
mhm.
advantages to being an S corp within the LLC or not. So talk to
Sure,
your professional, your CPA regarding that. Um,
absolutely.
you mentioned earlier the registered agent and then
Hmm.
getting mailings and things like that.
Hmm.
So if somebody does that on their own, does that mean they're their own technical registered agent and things go to their home, or how does that work, Amy? What's the difference between you guys being an agent versus somebody doing it on their own?
Yeah, good question. So absolutely, a person could list themselves as the registered agent, and if they're doing business out of their home, they could list their home address. That would be their registered office address then. The risk they take with that is if they get sued, a process server would come to that address. And sometimes people just don't want a process server knocking on their door, and all the neighbors would see that. Your registered agent should be present during regular business hours as well to receive legal matters and get those forwarded on in a timely manner. If you're going to be on vacation, if you're just not going to be present, it's not wise to list yourself. We see people list employees a lot, and then when that employee leaves the company, which is bound to happen, then they have to change their registered agent. So, and again, a filing with the state that costs money to make that update. So if you hire a service company such as ours, a professional registered agent company, we're there during regular business hours every day of the week, present to receive the documents and get those forwarded on in a timely manner.
So a couple advantages there, and one
Yeah.
in particular is, we've talked on other episodes of the podcast, is separating your personal from your business. You don't want to use
Right.
the same bank account, right? So you don't necessarily
Right.
want to use your home, even if you're operating out of your home. You still don't
Hmm.
necessarily want to use that as your agent of record address, where you might miss something, or again, it gets shuffled
Hmm.
in paperwork, and the dog eats it or whatever it is. Might be at home. Not going to happen with you guys, right?
Oh, absolutely. And all valid points there. And yes, you brought up the anonymity and kind of keeping yourself separate. We see that more and more. It's becoming a very prominent request where people just don't want to have their address listed.
Yeah.
So they're looking to list an outside address for that.
Yeah, all kinds of spam and stuff out there that these days it's easier and easier to track. So if you can use an
Uh-huh.
alternative, that's the way to
Hmm.
go.
Hmm.
Um, Amy, how do you guys differ from a corporate attorney or using a law firm for some of this? What advantages, or how are you guys different as a compliance or agent standpoint?
I would say the biggest difference is going to be price. People would pay hundreds upon hundreds of dollars to a law firm to have them prepare and file articles and act as registered agent. Their annual fee to act as agent would be way higher than ours. So, and another thing, the attorney may take it a few steps further and be able to prepare their corporate bylaws, their operating agreement, internally held documents that they may be able to pay the attorney to draft. We don't offer that drafting service. If they're looking for additional assistance with that, that may be worth going to an attorney. Just in terms of what we do and our knowledge base, we're going to do the same thing and we're going to cost a lot less. So,
and so you're not necessarily taking the place of the attorneys. You're just streamlining a portion of what they may do that's kind of, low end of the totem pole for their services.
true.
You guys are streamlining that piece so that the businesses can just make it easier for them, right?
You bet. And we have a lot of attorney clients that come to us and engage our filing service for their clients. So they're funneling their work through us. We're actually doing the filing, but the attorney's office is kind of combining it in one little package. So we have a lot of law firm clients that do that.
Nice. Again, the attorneys know the value of their time, and so they can outsource it to you guys. Again, similar in my world, accountants will refer us business for payroll because we can do it easier. They're more than qualified to do it, but it sounds like it's the same with you guys. The attorneys are qualified to do it, but may not be their bread and butter of what they want to necessarily do. So
you bet. They're saving themselves time. You bet.
Great. Amy, we hear from time to time that, there's certain states that are more beneficial to incorporate in than others. I'm a new business owner, I'm starting an entity. Should I look around and see what state has the best deal, or, do I just register with my home state? How does that work? And what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, another good question. So to answer your question directly, if you were starting a business in your own state, I would recommend that you form your entity in that state. Otherwise, if you form it in one of the popular states, like you mentioned, which certainly are out there, Delaware, Wyoming, Nevada, we see those the most. If you form it in that state, and then you will be doing business in the state you live in, you then have to do a foreign registration in the state where you live, because you will be conducting business there. Therefore, you're now maintaining two separate state registrations, paying annual fees to both states, perhaps taxes to both states. You're doubling your expense if you're registering it outside of your home state. Of course, there are people who do that for internal purposes. Maybe they want, like I mentioned, the anonymity purposes. Sometimes people will form in other states because you don't have to disclose as much information in those states. So it all really depends on what your ultimate end goal is with your entity. But if you were just a mom and pop starting a business in your own state, I would say form it in your state. For sure.
That makes sense. Just keep it easy and keep it simple and go with that. There may be advantages if you grow large enough or something like that, or maybe have multiple entities, but overall, it sounds like stick with your home state is the best way to go with it. As a business, maybe walk us through, Amy, what is, what are the steps? Is there, continual maintenance? So once we engage you guys and you form the entity, do we have to, do this monthly or yearly? How does that work from initial? So I've got my idea, I contact you guys, and what happens next?
Yeah. Okay. So if you are hiring us to do the formation of the entity, we would have a one-time fee for the formation, preparation, and filing of those documents. And then if we're acting as your registered agent, that would be an annual fee with us. It's an annual service that we provide. And on an annual basis, with almost every state, you will have an annual report filing. And this is a filing that you have to submit to the Secretary of State. Every state has their own due date for this. You have to file it on time. If you do not file it on time, you could be kicked out of good standing and then have to pay reinstatement fees and penalties to get back in good standing. All due dates vary by state, so it's a lot to keep track of if you have multiple registrations. But we have a service available where we would monitor the due date of that annual report, prepare it, file it. That way it keeps you in compliance. You don't even have to worry about it. You don't have to put it on your calendar at all. We'll do it for you and keep you in compliance.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, from a timing standpoint, when I get started, again, I've got an idea. Should I wait to get everything filed with the state and approved before I start doing business, or can I go out there and start hustling and selling clients and doing business before I get any of that? From a timing standpoint, what does that look like?
Definitely wise to wait until you've got all your ducks in a row and you're legal. That would be my recommendation. Make sure you're filed and legit with the state and start from there.
Yeah. As excited as we get initially, we want to jump out there and do it, but wait to get the paperwork done first, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a good idea. Yep. And another item that we get asked about a lot is getting a bank account established, because a lot of times people do what you just said and they'll start making money and they have checks that they want to cash, but they can't cash their check because they don't have a business bank account established. because they haven't formed their entity yet. So it's, you definitely want to do all of this in the proper order. And a lot of times, in order to open a business bank account, what that bank needs to see is proof of your registration with that Secretary of State office.
Yeah. So this is really early in the process of forming a business is the entity side. It comes actually before, you mentioned earlier, before you get an EIN, before you get a bank account, before you start selling, before you start doing anything. You really need to do this. So you maybe getting an idea obviously is number one. This is probably, once you decide that this is your idea, this is likely the number 2 step in starting a business. Is that fair?
I would say that's fair, right? You get your idea, you get your business plan in place, you get all of that lined up. And then yes, next step, make it official with the state. And you mentioned the EIN. We advise people to wait until the entity is filed before you apply for your EIN. That way your legal name with the state will match your legal name with the IRS. So those are important pieces of information.
That is important. And I've seen that before in my experience where those don't match and it causes problems.
I bet.
Tenfold. So
yes.
So good advice. But form your entity, figure out essentially what entity you're going to be. So do you guys help with that? So if I'm out there and I'm watching this and I don't know what I should be and shouldn't be, do you guys help with that? Or do we need to come to you and say, this is what I want to be? What sort of direction can you give to, new business owners out there?
Right. So in our role, we don't necessarily advise. We recommend that if they're on the fence and they're unsure, that they consult with an attorney first, just so they know exactly what structure they need to go for what they're looking to accomplish. We definitely can tell them what an LLC is and what a corporation is and how they differ. And then it's ultimately up to them to make the decision, which one's right for me. We don't want to steer them wrong and have them try to come back. And we're not attorneys, so.
Totally understand. So leave the attorney work to the attorneys and the accountants, and they can figure that out. And then once they know for sure, yes, I'm a sole prop, or yes, I'm going to be an LLC, or whatever else is involved there, then they can come to you guys from there. Right?
Exactly.
Okay. Got it.
Yes.
What else, Amy? What else are we missing that a new business owner who's just starting out would need to know in regards to all of this? And reporting agents. We've covered a lot. Reporting agents. Types of org structure, things like that. What about this time frame? So I engage you. How long do I have to wait before I can go start selling? Before the state approves my my application? Once we know what we're going to do, how long do I have to wait until the state actually is filed officially?
Another good question. It all varies on the state. Most states have online filing, I should say, for new entity formation. Typically, when it's an online filing, they will process perhaps immediately. Colorado, immediately. You submit your application, you pay, boom, you get an email, it's filed. Some states, they do have a little bit of an approval process, even if it's online. So it might just be a matter of days. That is the best case scenario. If it's a state where you have to do a paper filing and submit an old school paper application to the state, you will have to wait a little bit longer. It could be a few weeks. And COVID has definitely slowed down many states. They're improving. They're definitely improving, but there were many state offices that just closed. And you were just stuck. So your filing was just waiting. So can vary by state. Online's the best route if the state has it.
Got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
What's the best way, Amy, that viewers and listeners can reach out to you? So if this sounds like somebody needs help with that is watching this, how can they reach out to you and your organization?
Yeah, good question. So our website, www.ursagents.com. We have buttons that you can click on to get a quote request or just submit an information request form. Give us a call. Our 800 numbers on the website. We're based out of Duluth, Georgia. We have live people answering the phone during regular business hours. That's what sets us apart. You're not going to get a recording when you call us. You're going to speak to a person when you call us. After business hours, we do have the phone system, but call us during the day, we'll pick up the phone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Parting thoughts as we wrap up here, Amy, if you're new business owners out there that are listening to this and intrigued, any parting thoughts for them?
Do your research. There's so much information online. Just Google, what do I need to do to form a new LLC? What are the requirements for this state? Go to that Secretary of State website for whatever state you are looking to form the entity in. Research everything that's on that Secretary of State website. So many states have phenomenal websites with a wealth of information. Know what you're getting yourself into. Know that you are going to have annual reoccurring fees. Do your research, be prepared, then call us.
Perfect. Well, Amy,
Yeah.
this has been really insightful. I learned a lot of what to expect when starting a business. And I know a lot of our listeners will be very grateful for that information because, again, small business and starting those provides jobs, it boosts the economy, it
Right.
does all kinds of great things for everything we do. So we got to get out there and support local. And the best way to do that is to start a business and support them.
That's
So
right. There you
perfect.
go.
Well,
All
thanks so
right.
much for being here, Amy.
Thanks,
Appreciate your
Joe. You
time.
bet. Appreciate it as well.
Amy, that was great information. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise and your knowledge of the entity formation and what's involved with that and all the ins and outs. Highly recommend using a service. Contact Amy. She was gracious enough to give us her time and her knowledge. So reach out to her if you need help, and her firm at URS. They're great at what they do, and they can certainly help you with your entity formation. Again, a lot of moving parts, a lot of pieces when you start a business. This is really one of the first things you need to do. So make sure it's done right. That's the key takeaway here. Do it right the first time. You may think you're saving money up front by doing things yourself or guessing on some things, but it's going to cost you later on. So do it right up front. Get a hold of Amy and make sure that you're in compliance with everything and that your entity is registered so that you can do business. So if you like this, if you like what you heard, if you enjoy the startup series, the Ideal Startup series, and you're thinking about starting a business, maybe you did start a business, subscribe, like our page, go ahead and share this out there with others, and make sure you get future updates because we're going to be talking small business startups. That's what we do. That's what we're passionate about. That's our mission, is to make sure your business succeeds and that you can live your dreams going forward. We all know small business is a key to prosperity, economic growth, and living the life of our dreams. So make that yours as well and start your business today. So as always, I'm Joe Silva. I appreciate you and your time. As always, support local.